Good morning, church. Welcome. Is anybody excited to be here this morning? If you're excited to be in the house of the Lord, stand to your feet, wave your hands. Feel free to stand to your feet, wave your hands, say, Jesus, thank you for being here. We seek your presence this morning, Jesus. Before we get started, can you look to your left? Can you look to your right? Can you tell somebody good morning?
One, two, intro, 2, 3, 4. Verse. Verse. Chorus. Turnaround. Verse. Verse. Chorus.
so much for joining us here today. We are so glad to see you. A big welcome, especially to our first-time guests. And we would like to ask you if you're willing to fill out a connection card. We have cards on each of these tables, or scan the QR code and do it online. We would love to know more about you so that we can find out how to serve you. So we have a mission trip team in the Dominican Republic today, and our pastor, Chris, is there leading them. And so let's all be in prayer that God just pour out his blessings on them while they serve. Let's continue to worship.
When the music fades, all is stripped away, and I simply come, longing just to bring
It's all about you. It's all about you, Jesus. I'm sorry, Lord, for the thing I made it. When it's all about you, it's all about you, Jesus. I'm coming back to the heart of worship. And it's all about you. It's all about you, Jesus. I'm sorry, Lord, for the thing I made it. When it's all about you, it's all about you, Jesus.
I'm caught up in your presence. I just wanna sit here at your feet. I'm caught up in this holy moment. I never wanna leave. Oh, I'm not here for blessings. Jesus, you don't owe me anything more than anything that you can do. I just want you. And I'm sorry when I've just gone through the motions. I'm sorry when I just sing another song. Take me back to where we started. I open up my heart to you. And I'm sorry when I've come with my agenda. I'm sorry when I forgot that you're enough. Take me back to where
you don't owe me anything more than anything that you can do. I just want you.
Thank you, Jesus. Thank you for this time of worship, God. We seek your presence this morning, God. We worship you, Jesus. Thank you for the air that we breathe, God. Thank you for your presence, God. Thank you for your grace and your everlasting love. Thank you for the hope that you give us, God. Thank you for being the one who is the only one, God. Thank you for allowing us to be here this morning, God. Whatever we came here with this morning, God, I pray that we lay it at your feet. No matter what the struggle is, the hurt, the pain, the grief, the shame, the embarrassment, God. I pray that we lay it at your feet, God, and we feel peace from being in your presence. Thank you for the sermon that's about to be said this morning, God. And I pray that you bless Caleb this morning with the message. I pray that our hearts are open to receive what he wants to receive this morning, God. Thank you for your everlasting love, grace, and your presence, Jesus. We welcome you into this room. And all these things we ask in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Hey. Good morning, Wellspring Church. And happy Father's Day to all the dads in the room. Can we give a quick either a round of applause and a whoop whoop? Let's do that all together. On the count of three, whoop whoop. 1, 2, 3. Whoop whoop. We love you, dads. We're grateful for you. That's as much as you're going to get out of me this morning. Just kidding. We've got something on the tail end for you. Hey, today we're going to begin a new series called The Power Struggle. So Chris has allowed me to sort of kick it off while he's in the Dominican Republic, helping to lead our team there. And so, as Brenna said, I would just ask you throughout this week, would you just keep him and Victor Garcia and Vincent and Serene and Mariama and Ava and Kristen all in your prayers as they are witnessing to kids generally orphaned in the Dominican Republic. Just keep them in your prayers. We'd love for God to just transform not just the kids' lives in the Dominican Republic, but for it to be a refreshing time for our team that is there as well. In this series on the power struggle, we're going to be looking at really a variety of different sins. So, I'm expecting for attendance to really drop off over the course of the summer. I'm glad that I get the first one so that you guys are warned. I'm just kidding. Come back next week. Chris is going to do a great job. Today we're going to begin with really what I think is the foundation of all sin. Right? It's the sin that undergirds sin. It's the sin that's like, if you're building a house, this sin is the concrete foundation of everything else that comes up on top of it. And that's just pride. We're going to be talking about pride this morning. And really quick, just to clear the air, I'm not talking about pride like, wow, I just saw my kid do something that was challenging. I'm welling up with this joyful gratitude to be their dad. That's not really what we're talking about. We're talking about an elevation of the self. We're talking about a disjointed relationship with God, and we're going to unpack that. We are going to be going all over the Bible this morning. So prepare yourself. We're going to start out in Genesis chapter 3. Then we're going to take a nice long jump over to Ezekiel 28 and a short hop to Daniel chapter 4, and then we're going to close things out in Revelation, all right? So we're spanning the whole Bible. Please pray for me as we do that. I want to introduce this idea through illustration, and there's nothing better than this movie that it's dear to my heart. By show of hands, it's a bit of a stretch, kind of an indie movie. Anybody here familiar with the movie Toy Story? Came out in 1995, year of my birth. Yeah. I feel it too. In my knees, I'm starting to feel it. So it's been around. I'm going to offer a bit of a spoiler warning, but you've had time. You've had 3 decades to watch this movie, all right? In this movie, it tells the story of really two characters. You have Woody, right? He is a cowboy. He is a sheriff, right? He's this like cowboy sheriff doll. And he is Andy's favorite toy. And Woody, because he's Andy's favorite toy, he's the toy that gets to kind of give instructions to all the other toys in Andy's toy box. He's the leader. Everybody looks to him. He's enjoying the privilege of leadership. He gets to wear the crown of leadership. Like, that's been Woody's life, and it's been a good life, and Woody loves it, and he enjoys being Andy's favorite toy. But then all of a sudden, Andy has a birthday, and Buzz Lightyear shows up on the scene. Now, again, if you've seen the movie, you know what happens. They butt heads, right? All the way to the point where they're ripped away from Andy's home. They're trying to get back. They end up in a neighbor kid's backyard, and he is kind of bad news. He likes to take toys and rip them apart and blow them up and things. So we end up in this scene toward the end of the movie where you've got Woody underneath this sort of milk crate with a toolbox on top of him, trapped behind bars in Sid's room. And then Buzz, he's strapped to a rocket. He has got a death sentence. The next morning, once it stops raining, Sid's taking him out to the backyard, lighting him up, and watching him go boom, right? And so Woody is desperately pleading for Buzz to let him out, help him, move this crate, do something. Let's put aside our differences. Let's go, right? And Buzz is he's deflated. He's dejected. He's just realized that he's not actually a space ranger. He is just a toy. Timothy Keller has this book called The Freedom of Self-Forgetfulness. It's only like 50 pages long. It's like a booklet. And I just encourage everybody here to read it. It's excellent. My wife introduced it to me, and I've loved it. He introduces this idea that our pride, our ego, in its fallen state is in one of two conditions. Either on the one side, we're super overinflated, just about to burst. You've got too much air in this balloon to the point where it's stretching, it's in pain, it's always having to be tended to, all right? You're constantly competing with other people. You're trying to pad your resume. You're trying to always looking across, am I better than this person? Am I better than that person? And proud of all of your achievements and accomplishments. So you've got that on the one side, this overinflated ego, and on the other side, you have this balloon that's just been blown up and all the air's gone out of it. You feel worthless. You are struggling with your pride. You're always paying attention to yourself. You can't stop thinking about how low you feel, how diminished you feel. So you do want that attention and that affection. Timothy Keller is saying, we swing between these two poles. You are either a balloon about to burst or you have burst. Right? And I love this scene in Toy Story because it does illustrate a balloon that has been deflated in Woody and one that just got popped with Buzz. That's our condition. That is the state of our pride. We either think too much of ourselves, and then we got the knees cut out from under us because something happens, right? We're laid off. We're fired. Somebody sees past our facades that we're not as righteous, not as holy, or we've just been deflated and we're exhausted, and we're desperate for somebody to tell us that we mean something. Those are the two conditions that we find ourselves in with our pride. Timothy Keller, has this definition to offer. I'm going to go and throw it up on the screen for you. I think it's just going to be on this one. He says this: spiritual pride is the illusion that we are competent to run our own lives, achieve our own sense of self-worth, and find a purpose big enough to give us meaning in life without God. Essentially, he's targeting these three different issues related to our lives. Who's in charge of our lives? Who defines our life's worth, and who gives our life purpose? And pride is what happens when we inject I into all of those. I am in charge of my life. I get to decide my worth. I will make my resume as long and as proud as possible. I'll be worth so much. I decide how my life has purpose. I get to define those things. Pride is what happens when we inject ourselves into these conditions of our lives that only God was meant to define. That's pride, and that's what we're talking about this morning. So Open with me to Genesis chapter 3, and we're going to look at the very beginning, the foundation, that concrete level of what pride is. It starts off just right after God created the world. If you're unfamiliar with the Bible, Genesis 1 and 2 are the accounts of God creating the world, all of the universe. That's Genesis 1 and 2. Goodness and perfection lasted 2 chapters of the Bible, all right? Then we have Genesis 3. My wife loves to say we live in a Genesis 3 world because really, Genesis 3 marks what has been the reality up until the coming of Jesus Christ, and now we live in a transition time. We live in a time when the Genesis 3 world is being overcome by the kingdom of God, and now we're on that trajectory. But we're still in this world of fallenness and sin. So take a look with me at Genesis chapter 3, verse 6. We're going to begin there, and then I'll kind of play a bit of catch up, flesh out some context after we read this. God has just put them in a garden and told them one tree is off limits, and a serpent has showed up and said, hey, I think you should eat that fruit from that tree. Verse 6, so when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was a delight to the eyes, and that the tree was to be desired to make one wise, she took of its fruit and ate. And she also gave some to her husband who was with her, and he ate. Then the eyes of both were opened, and they knew that they were naked. And they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves loincloth. I'm going to jump forward to the same chapter in verse 12. The man said, he's being asked by God, how did this happen? The man said, the woman whom you gave to me, she gave me the fruit of the tree, and I ate. Then the Lord said to the woman, what is this that you have done? The woman said, the serpent deceived me, and I ate. Okay, I'm going to take a quick little sidebar here and just note something. I think we oftentimes have this misconception that a serpent shows up in the garden and Adam and Eve were tricked into sin. But if that were the case, if that's true, then the reason that we are all struggling with sin, that we experience brokenness and turmoil in our lives, is because somebody had the wool pulled over their eyes. It takes some of the volition away from Adam and Eve. I think what God is trying to point out here in that dialogue is, hey, at least to our eyes, we see that they're just blame shifting. The woman to the serpent, the man to the woman. So I just want to note that, right? We didn't get tricked into sin. The serpent showed up and he did deceive. There was deception. But ultimately, the woman and the man, Adam and Eve, they chose pride. They chose themselves over this. Why is this an example of pride? Well, we see that they've been given instruction. They've been told what is right and wrong, what's off limits, and they're given one thing. It's like that meme. It's like you had one job. Adam and Eve, you had one job. Well, their job was to tend to the garden and walk joyfully with the Father. They were told, you've got one rule, which is don't eat the tree. Now, I'm a dad to Peter, and we just found out another boy coming along the way. So we've known about the boy, we've known about the baby. We found out last night that we're having another boy. So dad to 2 boys. With Peter at the moment, he's just in that stage where you can tell him something, and you can tell he's processing it. He's like, I know what I'm not supposed to do here. But what happens if I do the thing that I'm not supposed to do? And he's just testing us, like, do we mean it? Are we going to put our money where our mouth is? Are we really going in timeout? We're not doing timeout yet. We're still working all those things out. But you get the idea. Adam and Eve were told, given one rule, don't eat the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and they did that. Right? Why? Well, that's because they believed they knew better than God. Well, God, we have new context. The serpent showed up. He's given us a little bit more information here. No. Pride is what happens when that relationship gets inverted, right? When now I know better. I know more than God. I can choose what I do here. It reminds me of a time when I was in college, and I'll be honest, I was sent off to college with a pretty slick car. My dad's an attorney. For compensation for a case that he worked, he was given this pretty cool Mazda, and he was like, Caleb, you can, it was an incredible gift. Prom of 2013 or 14, whatever it was, and I was able to take this car and take it off to college, okay? It's a Mazda RX-8, all right? It was a cool car. It was a really cool car. I called it Night Fury, which is probably a little bit, too far, but So I had that car, and I was a pretty responsible driver, I think, for the most part. But my dad, he actually gave me one rule for that car. It wasn't don't speed in it. It wasn't, don't go crazy. I mean, it wasn't, don't go too fast or obey all of the traffic laws. Like, he didn't put any rules around that. He assumed I was going to obey all of those. But what my dad did was give me one rule when he gave me the keys. He said, don't let anybody else drive it. You probably see where this is going. I was a sophomore in college, and somebody took an interest in my car. I was like, this is a pretty cool car, Caleb. Would you mind if I take it for a spin? And being a guy, I was like, oh, it feels nice to have somebody think that my car is pretty cool. Yeah, what harm could it do? So we went out to this deserted part of Waco, Texas, and we took it for a few spins. And on the last go-around, this guy said, I'm just going to turn traction control off to get a real feel for the car. Never do that. Never do that. So he took traction control off, and on that go-around, we lost traction, predictably, and spiraled out of control, made contact with the curb, snapped the axle in two. The car was totaled. I broke my dad's one rule. Why? Well, it comes down to an issue of my pride. I thought I knew better in that moment than my dad. I could not see everything that my dad could see in that moment when he gave me that rule, but I sure did in hindsight. I broke my one rule. So what we see here with our pride, a consequence of that is it breaks trust. Pride chokes out trust. This is why it's an immediate concern to us as a Christian. If you want a trusting relationship with the eternal Heavenly Father, you've got to do something about your pride. Actually, spoiler alert, God's going to do something about your pride because he so desperately wants a relationship with us. This is, I found interesting. We know, I think intuitively, that trust is foundational to healthy, beautiful relationships. I came across this American Psychological Association article here from a study where this woman, PhD Katrin, she said this about trust as it relates to relationships. She says, our findings show that trust plays a key role in how happy and satisfied people feel across all ages, especially so for children, adolescents, and older adults. Whether it's trust in others, in society, or in institutions, all types matter for well-being. So as Christians, we know this intuitively. We know when trust is broken, relationships break. We've probably experienced that in our own lives. I know I've experienced that in my life. I'm sure you've experienced that in your life. Either you've broken trust or somebody's broken trust with you. And that set your relationship back with that person, your relationship with that person back. Our pride is doing that with our relationship with God. Our ego, our need to be in control of our lives, to be able to define its importance, its purpose, and its value, that impulse in us will undermine your relationship with God. It will undermine Eden in your life. And we see that play out in lots of different ways. We're going to take a look at a way that it is, we have that balloon. There's a king in Ezekiel, the king, the prince of Tyre, this port city, who's got a large balloon. His pride is inflated. And I want to highlight this character because not that he's a Christian, not that he's a believer in the one true God, but it's an example of what happens when we let our pride have its way, when our pride continues on the course, and why I would just encourage all of us to put it on a better path this morning. Open with me to Ezekiel chapter 28. We're going to take a look at verses 1 through 2 at first. Ezekiel chapter 28. Like I said, this is a prophecy. Well, this is a prophecy that God is making through Ezekiel the prophet to the prince of Tyre. It's a city, a port city, kind of where modern-day Lebanon is, all right? So think, the Mediterranean Sea, right? And as port cities go, right, you have a lot of access to trade. So it's a funnel for wealth through the region. That's just a general truism of port cities. Often you can establish yourself as trading hubs, or at least it's a vehicle for trade. The prince of Tyre let that get to his head. Let me read starting in verse 1. The word of the Lord came to me. Son of man, say to the prince of Tyre, thus says the Lord God. Because your heart is proud and you have said, I am a god. I sit in the seat of gods, in the heart of the seas. Yet you are but a man and no God, though you make your heart like the heart of a god. So you got the prince of Tyre who has established himself as somebody who's wealthy. He is successful. He's in a position of power and leadership, right? And he's looking around himself. Compared to his resume, nobody stacks up. This is a guy who's just amassed a lot of wealth and power. And so, in his mind, he's thinking, well, I'm doing pretty well. So well that maybe I am just an incarnate God in this world. That's literally what he's thinking and processing through, and it's not unique to him. We see that for kings, queens throughout time. That absent knowing they're under the authority of the one true God, they start to believe that they are God, functionally. He's saying, and I thought this was interesting. It says in the very middle there, verse 2, I sit in the seat of gods in the heart of the seas. In the ancient world, the sea was a place of chaos. In the very beginning, God brings peace and calm to the sea. He establishes that he is in control of chaos, that God is alone able to bring chaos to rest and to order. And so here we have somebody saying, that I am able to bring complete order to the chaos around me. He is that in control. Well, flash forward, we got verse 6 here. It says, therefore, thus says the Lord God, because you make your heart like the heart of a god, therefore, behold, I will bring foreigners upon you, the most ruthless of nations. And they shall draw their swords against the beauty of your wisdom and defile your splendor. They shall thrust you down into the pit, and you shall die the death of the slain in the heart of the seas. You've got God saying, you think you're in control? I will put you under the chaos that you think you're in control of. Flash forward, only one person, one human being is able to bring the chaotic seas to rest. And that's the man who would one day walk on them. The man who was God, the man who is Jesus Christ. We see this picture of the prince of Tyre. His pride is ballooned. And God is saying, you think you're something? I'm about to burst that balloon. And it is going to be an impressive destruction. So here we have this picture of a king who's just had his balloon, is going to have his balloon popped, all right? I think about it. He is just on the cusp of having all that he thinks makes him important just ripped away from him. We can see how establishing our sense of worth, our pride, our sense of self in our possessions, in our career, in our family. We see this in Job. Job has everything ripped away from him. All he's left with is his relationship with God. We see that God doesn't want our pride to get in the way of his relationship with us. So we also have another example. We actually have another ancient Mediterranean king who's been on the flip side of this. His balloon was burst. He had everything vanish. He lost his health, his wellness, his cognitive ability, all of it taken away. He was a destitute wanderer, and that's King Nebuchadnezzar. So I'm just real briefly, I just want to highlight King Nebuchadnezzar. Let me briefly, just take him back. The point about the Prince of Tyre, we have a problem when we tether our pride to our resume because the resume can get ripped to shreds. It can be taken away from you. There's no point in padding that resume with more gemstones. We see in verses 11 through 17 that the Prince of Tyre, he's likened to a cherub that guarded Eden, that had all of these jewels adorning him. But he got cocky. He started to think his wealth made him something special, right? So our pride, it tethers us, it attaches us, sews us up to our resume. So if that gets stained or ripped away, your whole sense of self is ripped away. Can't we see the problem with that? And what God so lovingly wants to save us from that. Well, look, he saves King Nebuchadnezzar from that. Take a look at Daniel chapter 4. Daniel chapter 4, verse 34 through 37. All right, this book is it's kind of in two parts. You have the first part, which is very narrative about Daniel speaking into the Babylonian court, and the second half, which is very prophetic, right? It gets a little bit strained, and so those are going to feel very disjointed at times. But here we're still in this narrative portion where Daniel has entered into the Babylonian court, and he's starting to speak into King Nebuchadnezzar's life. Well, we're on the other side of God bringing destruction to King Nebuchadnezzar. And this is what happens afterwards. He's been wandering around, and he's just now had his eyes opened up again in verse 34. At the end of the days, I, Nebuchadnezzar, lifted my eyes to heaven, and my reason returned to me. And I blessed the Most High, and I praised and honored him who lives forever. For his dominion is an everlasting dominion, and his kingdom endures from generation to generation. All the inhabitants of the earth are accounted as nothing, and he does according to his will among the host of heaven and among the inhabitants of the earth. And none can stay his hand or say to him, what have you done? In other words, nobody can question God. I'm going to jump forward to verse 37. Now I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise and extol and honor the King of heaven. For all his works are right and his ways are just. And those who walk in pride, he is able to humble. The king of Tyre is going to wish that he had a better relationship with his neighbor, the king of Babylon, right? Pride, it will bring us low. It will lead to destruction. We see that throughout the Bible. It says that in Proverbs 16:18, pride goes before destruction, and an haughty spirit before a fall. If pride tethers us to our resume, we need something to liberate us from the resume, right? We need gospel humility. We need ourselves not to be popped and deflated, right? Although sometimes that's a necessary part of the journey. We need just homeostasis. We need something that's at rest, at equilibrium. We need an ego that is where God has intended it to be, right? Gospel humility tethers you to God's resume. Humility in the eyes of God, establishing ourselves under his rule and his authority, not looking to all of our accomplishments, not comparing ourselves to other people to try to boost our self-confidence, not be feeling diminished when we look at somebody else and say, man, they're excelling, they're achieving, and now I feel less worthy or less valuable. If we can be detached from that and instead be tethered completely to who God is, what Jesus has done, well, there's good news. He's promised to confer all of that to us. He's promised to confer his identity to you and to me. Gospel humility tethers you to God's resume. This is what Timothy Keller says in The Freedom of Self-Forgetfulness about gospel humility. The essence of gospel humility is not thinking more of myself or thinking less of myself. It is thinking of myself less. I'll read that for you one more time. The essence of gospel humility is not thinking more of myself or thinking less of myself. It is thinking of myself less. We have in Jesus Christ a perfect example of gospel humility. Somebody who, don't get me wrong, had a lot of eyes on him. And everybody has a lot of eyes on them. It is so easy to start getting puffed up. Jesus was able to carry leadership and authority, the knowledge of kingdom of heaven derived authority, with humility. He was a man who was able to both instruct thousands of people and also wash feet. He was the man who was able to know he has come from the throne, and the throne was his for return. But in Philippians chapter 2 says that he did not count equality with God a thing to be grasped, but instead humbled himself to the point of death on a cross. Jesus Christ is the answer to our pride. You can't, hear me please say that if you feel like, man, I do feel like my ego is inflated, the answer is not to try to cut yourself down. It's not to start to treat your own ego as a punching bag. It's not to try to slip in self-deprecatory comments in conversations, this sort of like false sense of humility. That's really not the answer. Or on the flip side, if your pride is damaged in such a way that it's wounded and festering and needs attention, you feel underinflated. You feel like you need encouragement and affirmation constantly. Let me just tell you, the answer isn't in that encouragement or affirmation. The answer is not going to be just in more and more people telling you how good you are, because that just sends you on the path for the overinflated ego. You're either deflated or you're distended. But in Jesus Christ, we see somebody who was perfect relationship with himself, with the people around him, and with his heavenly Father. Jesus is the answer to our pride and our ego. So how do we rectify this? How do we address that problem? Well, have you heard the expression, heavy is the head that wears the crown? You know, you're familiar with that? It's usually meant to describe kind of like, hey, leadership is difficult. Sometimes there are some perks. It's easy for us to focus on the attention that a leader may get. But you might hear somebody say, heavy is the head that wears the crown. I want to just borrow that phrase and say, we are all wearing crowns. And if you feel worn down, worn out, I just ask the question, is it because you're trying to wear a crown over your life? Is your sense of self being stored up in what somebody else thinks about you, in how many awards you can get in school, in how many straight A's you can get, and what your GPA is, and how many people have affirmed or congratulated you for a project at work, or how many people can say, wow, you are such an excellent parent. I see you've got your life so well managed and in order. If we're storing up everything on our resume, that crown gets really, really heavy. In the Bible, in Revelation chapter 4, I don't have this on the screen for you, but in Revelation chapter 4, the Bible gives us a picture of what it looks like to just surrender that pride. It says this, and whenever the living creatures give glory and honor and thanks to him who is seated on the throne, who lives forever and ever, the 24 elders fall down before him who is seated on the throne and worship him who lives forever and ever. They cast their crowns before the throne, saying, worthy are you, our Lord and God, to receive glory and honor and power, for you created all things, and by you will they exist and were created. God's antidote to our pride and all the problems it causes in our life, broken relationships, broken trust, or a fragile sense of self, is for us just to take the crown and just cast it at the feet of Jesus. For us, I think that means not storing up all of our worth and our value in what we can achieve or accomplish. It means recognizing when somebody else gets a compliment or is affirmed or recognized or something comes their way, confronting the impulse to feel jealous or frustrated or, on the pride sense, angry that somebody else got attention and I didn't. I'm guilty of that. Is to catch that thought and go, God, gospel humility, what is it? It's not thinking less of myself. I'm not less because they were complimented. I am not more if I receive the compliment. God, help me not to think so much about myself. Help me to focus on other people and let them be the sole focus. I want to close out here just by highlighting something again from Toy Story. It is one of my favorite movies of all time. I was Toy Story for probably 7 out of 8 Halloweens for the first 8 years of my life. And I'm pretty sure I revisited it at age 10. In that scene where you've got Woody trapped and Buzz strapped to a rocket, Woody ends up showering Buzz with all of these compliments. He gets to the end of the line, he says, Buzz, you are cool. It's like for a kid, you're like, that is the compliment, right? As an adult, you're like, okay, all right. But Woody shouts out, Buzz, you are cool. In fact, you're too cool. Who would want to play with a toy like me next to a toy like you? Who would want me next to you? And there's this beautiful moment. Woody, he just had his balloon popped again. He's missed the point this whole time. And Buzz actually catches it. He looks down under his boot, and he sees what name written under there? Andy's name, right? He sees Andy's name written under his boot. And he remembers, this is not about, am I a space ranger, or am I a favorite toy? Am I the best toy? Have I got the best bells and whistles? It's not about your resume. It's not about how many accolades you've amassed or who has complimented you. None of those will be transformative. None of those will sustain you, right? What's it about? It's about who's written their name on your boot. And Buzz sees that. And he gets Woody out. They get out of there. The climactic finale comes. They end up blasting off to infinity and beyond, and they glide safely back into a moving car and sit right there next to Andy, where they belong. I'm going to go ahead and invite the band to come on out. I hope that you know that God has his name written on your boot. That God's name is written on your boot. He has given your life worth and meaning and purpose. He wants you to know that, to feel that, right? And if you're a Christian, right, you've got his name on your boot, and you have his relationship, Jesus' relationship with the Father. So I know in this room, we have people who have relationships with their dad that are less than ideal. And on a day like Father's Day, sometimes that bubbles up, right? Maybe you feel like you had to strive to earn the name on your boot, or you had to really, or you never got it. You never got your dad's approval, right? Jesus has said, hey, you can have my relationship with my dad. I will give that to you. I will import to you. You throw the crown down. Surrender the boast, the claim. That's not what makes you valuable in his eyes. It's that he's created you and that he loves you. It's never that Andy and that Woody and Buzz were cool toys. It's that they were Andy's toys. It's not that you are impressive, that you're stunning, that you're beautiful, that you're skilled or intelligent. None of that matters. It didn't matter for the king of Tyr. He's dead and gone. His name is a byword. It didn't matter for King Nebuchadnezzar. It doesn't matter for you or for me. What matters is whose name is on our boot, right? God has placed his on yours. So dads, quick word for you as well. Being a dad, I've already started to feel some of the anxiety and insecurity, I think, that comes with fatherhood. The fear that my son, Peter, and our child that we don't have a name for yet, but we're going to find it. We're hunting for it actively. The fear that I'm not going to measure up for him, that I won't be a dad he could be proud of. I think that's probably something every dad in here has felt and experienced. So I'm not preaching from experience here. I'm preaching from some weakness. And I just want you to join me in that. Dads, surrender the crown. Surrender the need to impress. Surrender the need to do anything but make sure that your children know that they've got your name on their boot and that they've got God's name there too. And if they know that, then you're doing really well. And maybe you need to go back and just, with a bold Sharpie, make sure that those names are etched on there real good and strong. Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we just ask this morning that you would help all of us as a church, that we'd have a throne room in here where Jesus is exalted, and there is a lot of junk metal collecting at the foot of his throne out of our ramshamble DIY crowns that we've made for ourselves. God, would they just be junk before you? God, I pray that our posture, our hearts would be transformed as we every day seek to do that and confront the ways that we haven't. Help us, God, just to surrender to you our pride. Help us to surrender our identity and our worth to you. And God, I pray that everybody here would know that they're loved, that they have your name written on their boot. It's your name we pray, Jesus. Amen. Can you please stand and worship with us as we close out?
assurance, Jesus is mine. Oh, what a foretaste of glory divine, heir of salvation, purchase of God, born of His Spirit, washed in His blood. Perfect submission, all is at rest. I in my Savior am happy and blessed, watching and waiting, looking above, filled with His goodness, lost in His love. This is my story, this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. This is my story, this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. Oh, what a Savior, wonderful Jesus. 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 Death could not hold you. You are victorious. Praise to the risen King. Death could not hold you. You are victorious. Praise to the risen King. This is my story. This is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. This is my story. This is my song, praising my Savior all the day long.
Hey, thank you for coming and worshiping with us. The King is worthy of our attention and our affection and our devotion. And so we just want to encourage you as a church, give all of that to Him. Let's throw the crowns at His feet this week, whatever that looks like. And I'm going to invite Joshua to come up here and tell us a little something we're going to be doing for dads here in just a moment.
Yes. Good morning, church. Check, check. 1, 2. Can you hear me? All right, well, we're having a Father's Day gathering out here in the Connection area. You might be wondering, where is the Connection area? It's the cafeteria area just to the left before you leave the building. It's called Pop for Pops. We're having grab a soda, grab a table. We have some table questions out there for you to just spend some time sharing stories, sharing some wisdom. So whether you're a dad, have a dad, want to be a dad, or just want to connect with some of the people in the Wellspring family, come join us. This is for absolutely everyone. We'd love to see you out there. So come join us in a few minutes.
All right, you are dismissed. Go in peace.